The throne of Arawa gleamed under the golden torchlights, a symbol of power, but for King Adewale, it felt like an empty seat. 3 years had passed since his beloved queen died during childbirth, and though the palace bustled with servants and advisors, his chambers echoed with silence. He sat on the high dais, a lion caged in gold. "Your Majesty," the Queen Mother's voice slithered through the air like a seasoned serpent. "It is time to end this mourning. The council grows restless." Adewale's jaw clenched. He hated when she used that tone, a mix of authority and threat. "And what would you suggest, Mother?" Her crimson lips curved into a smile. "Lady Sua is of noble blood, beautiful, gentle, and obedient." He knew what she wanted: control. Marry her niece, keep the crown in her grip. Adewale rose, towering and regal, his voice cold as steel. "I will marry for love, not politics." The Queen Mother's eyes hardened. "Love is a luxury kings cannot afford." He turned away, but a strange feeling stirred in his chest, a whisper that something was coming to change everything. And then the drums sounded at the gates. The delegation from the rival kingdom of Ajibade had arrived. Among them, veiled in silk and pride, was Princess Dara, the woman who would set his world on fire. The palace gates of Arawa opened with a groan, and in rode the delegation from Ajibade, a procession of warriors, their spears catching the evening sun like tongues of fire. At the center, upon a black horse, sat Princess Dara. She was no ordinary captive. Draped in flowing ivory silk that clung to her curves with quiet arrogance, her chin was high, her lips defiant, and her eyes, gods, her eyes. Dark and fierce, they glimmered like onyx set in fire, holding no trace of fear, even as the chains of politics bound her fate. King Adewale watched her descend from the horse, each step measured like a queen disguised in humility. Whispers slithered through the crowd. The princess of Ajibade, the daughter of their greatest enemy. Dara's gaze lifted, locking onto his. In that moment the world stilled. It wasn't the submissive glance of a conquered woman. It was a challenge. Her eyes said, "I will never bow to you." Adewale felt something sharp twist inside his chest. Desire, anger, curiosity. He stepped forward, his voice a low rumble. "Princess Dara, welcome to Arawa." She dipped her head, but her voice, smooth as palm wine yet edged with steel, sent a current through the hall. "I do not come as a guest, Your Majesty. I come as a hostage." Gasps rippled. The Queen Mother's smile tightened like a snare. Lady Sua, standing behind her in a gown of scarlet, let her eyes rake over Dara with disdain, and something darker. As the drums faded and the court murmured, Adewale realized one truth. This woman was going to be his undoing. The great hall of Arawa glowed like molten gold, alive with drums, laughter, and the scent of roasted game. Silk banners swayed above, and 100 flickering flames danced across the polished marble floor. But amid the opulence, tension coiled like a python in the shadows. King Adewale sat at the head of the long table, his crown gleaming under the torchlight, yet his eyes, dark, smoldering, were drawn only to one woman, Ara. She sat at the far end, her ivory gown hugging her like a secret lover, a single braid falling over one shoulder. She didn't smile. She didn't lower her gaze. She simply looked at him, bold, unflinching, like a queen who refused to be conquered. That look burned more than any touch could. The drums faded as dancers twirled, beads clinking, but Adewale barely noticed. He was drowning in those onyx eyes when a soft, honeyed voice broke the spell. "My king!" Lady Sua slid into the seat beside him like warm oil on smooth skin. She wore crimson silk that clung to her every curve, her perfume thick and heady, her smile sharp as a dagger. Slowly, deliberately, her fingers brushed his hand. "Does Arawa's lion starve tonight?" Adewale stiffened, his jaw tightening. "The lion chooses his prey carefully," he murmured, pulling his hand away. Her laughter tinkled like poisoned glass. "And yet, some prey comes willingly." Her eyes darted toward Dara, full of venom masked as sweetness. The princess raised her goblet and met Adewale's gaze across the hall. For the first time she smiled, just a faint curl of lips, but it sliced through him like fire through silk. A silent challenge. A whisper of war. And the king. He realized, with a shiver he could not hide, that the battle had already begun. The banquet ended, but the fire it sparked refused to die. Night draped the palace in velvet shadows, the scent of palm wine and spices still lingering in the corridors. Adewale walked alone, his thoughts tangled with images of her. Those eyes that defied him, that smile that felt like sin. He should return to his chambers. He should sleep. He should forget her. Instead, his feet betrayed him, leading him to the moonlit gardens, the place where silence blooms like forbidden flowers. And there she was. Dara stood by the fountain, her gown of ivory melting into the silver of moonlight, her braids tumbling over bare shoulders. Her back was to him, but she didn't startle when he spoke. You should not wander alone at night. She turned slowly, her lips curving into something soft, dangerous. Neither should kings. The air thickened, heavy with words unsaid. Adewale stepped closer, the gravel crunching beneath his sandals, the night alive with crickets and his pounding heart. Why do you tempt me, Dara? His voice was low, rough, like a man fighting demons he longed to lose. Her eyes glittered. Maybe I want to see if a king is still a man. Something snapped. In 2 strides, he was in front of her, his fingers curling under her chin, lifting her gaze to his. Her breath hitched, sweet and quick, as his thumb traced the curve of her jaw. Careful, princess, he murmured, his lips a whisper from hers. Fire consumes what it cannot control. And what if I want to burn? Her words trembled, but her eyes, those wild, glorious eyes, dared him. The kiss fell like thunder, hungry, desperate, sinful. His hands gripped her waist, pulling her against him as if she belonged there, as if the gods themselves had carved her for him. She tasted of wine and war, of defiance and surrender. Her fingers clutching the folds of his agbada as his mouth devoured every inch of doubt. For a heartbeat the world ceased. There was no throne, no council, no enemy lines. Just the heat of her lips, the wild drum of their hearts, and the knowledge that this was a betrayal that could destroy them both. From the shadows beyond the columns, another pair of eyes watched, the glint of jewels, the curve of a crimson gown. Lady Sua. And her smile promised blood. The night after the kiss, the palace corridors pulsed with whispers. Servants moved like shadows, eyes averted, but secrets travel faster than footsteps. And in the heart of the royal chambers, 2 worlds collided behind closed doors. Adewale shouldn't have come. He knew the risk. If the council learned he lay with the enemy's princess, the throne would bleed. But desire was a storm, and he had surrendered to its rage. Dara's chamber smelled of sandalwood and rebellion. She sat before the bronze mirror, ivory gown loosened, bare shoulders glowing in the soft amber light of oil lamps. When he entered without a word, her breath caught, not in fear but in something darker. "You shouldn't be here, Your Majesty," she whispered, though her body leaned toward him, hungry for sin. "Say that again," he murmured, stepping behind her. His hands slid over her shoulders, warm, claiming, his lips grazing the curve of her neck. Her protest died in a gasp as he turned her to face him, her gown slipping like spilled silk. The kiss was deeper this time, feral, consuming. His fingers tangled in her braids, her nails clawed at his chest. They fell together onto the bed carved with symbols of kingship, and for the first time in years, Adewale felt alive, not as a ruler but as a man on fire. Outside the chamber, Lady Sua walked away slowly, her crimson gown trailing like blood across the marble floor. In her hand, a tiny vial glinted under the torchlight, clear poison, sweeter than honey, deadlier than rage. "I warned you, Dara," she whispered to the dark. "You want a crown. You'll choke on it." Later that night, Dara's goblet shimmered with wine poured by hands that smiled too sweetly. She raised it, oblivious to the venom floating inside. And from across the hall, Lady Sua's eyes gleamed like a panther before the kill. The sound of shattering glass woke Adewale like a war drum. He stormed into Dara's chamber to find chaos, servants on their knees, Dara sprawled across the marble floor, her goblet overturned, wine bleeding like blood into the cracks. Her lips were pale. Her body trembled. "Dara!" His roar shook the room as he dropped to his knees, gathering her into his arms. Her breath came shallow, her eyes half closed, but she clung to him weakly, her fingers curling into his robe. "Stay with me," he whispered, his voice raw, almost breaking as he pressed his forehead to hers. For the first time in years, fear, a king's greatest enemy, coiled inside him like a serpent. The royal healer came running, flanked by guards. "Poison," he said grimly after tasting the residue. "But the gods favor her. The dose was small. She will live if she rests." Adewale carried her to the royal infirmary, refusing to let anyone else touch her. His council followed, their voices like vultures circling prey. "Your Majesty," boomed Chief Ajani, his tone sharp with accusation. "A princess from the enemy's house poisoned? What message does this send to the people?" "It sends the message," Adewale snarled, his voice ablade, "that there is a traitor in this palace." That night, he stood over Dara as she slept, the moonlight painting her skin in silver. His hand brushed her cheek, trembling with something he could no longer deny. Love. A wild, reckless love that demanded blood. Lady Sua watched from the shadows again, her rage simmering hotter than the lamps. She turned to the Queen Mother, who stood like a carved idol in the darkness. "You wanted me to control him," Sua hissed, "but he belongs to her. If Dara lives, I will burn this palace to ash." The Queen Mother's smile was slow, cruel. "Then start the fire, my dear. But remember, when the smoke clears, the crown must still be ours." The palace didn't sleep that night. Shadows crawled across its marble bones, whispering secrets only the walls could keep. Dara lay in her chamber, fever fading, her pulse steady, thanks to Adewale, who had not left her side for 2 nights. His care had become obsession, his touch too tender for a king sworn to iron and war. But tonight duty dragged him away, summoned to the council chamber for a matter of urgency. He had no idea he was walking into a snare. The chamber glowed with low lamps and the sweet smoke of incense. Empty chairs loomed like silent judges as Lady Sua emerged from the shadows, a vision in deep crimson silk, her body a map of temptation. Every inch of her gown clung like molten wax, her skin shimmering under the flicker of flame. "My king," she purred, stepping closer, her voice a slow drip of honey laced with venom. "You look weary. Let me ease your burden." Adewale stiffened. "Where is the council?" "They will come later." She smiled, a predator tasting blood. "But why waste the night on politics when you could have pleasure?" Her hand slid up his arm, nails grazing muscle, and for a breath, a dangerous breath, he froze. Not from desire, but from rage at his own weakness. She pressed closer, her perfume wrapping around him like chains. "You need a queen, Adewale," she whispered against his ear. "Not a prisoner. Not a traitor. Me." When he shoved her back, her laugh cracked like a whip. "Do you think they will forgive you when they know that you've been rutting with the enemy's princess? The throne will drown in your sin." Before he could speak, the doors burst open. Dara stood there, her face pale but her eyes blazing. Behind her, servants gasped, whispers spiraling like wildfire. For a heartbeat, silence ruled. Then Lady Sua's voice sliced through it like a blade. "See, Dara. Even kings stray when war brides are too weak to please them." And just like that, the trap snapped shut. The rumor had its wings. The council would have its scandal. And love would have to fight a war. The palace roared like a beast at dawn. Drums thundered, voices clashed like swords. News of the scandal spread faster than fire in Harmattan. The king has broken his oath. The king has lain with the enemy. The council stormed into the great hall, led by Chief Ajani, his words sharp as spears. "Your Majesty, this dishonor cannot stand. Either she dies." He stabbed a finger toward Dara, dragged in chains, her ivory gown torn and stained with tears, "or you forfeit the throne." Adewale rose from the throne like a storm. His crown gleamed under the harsh sun slanting through the high windows, but his voice was pure thunder. "Touch her, and I will feed you to the gods myself." Gasps cracked like whips. The Queen Mother's face froze, carved from rage and disbelief. Lady Sua smiled, soft, poisonous, knowing that the king had chosen love over power, and the price would be blood. "Then you declare war," the council spat. "So be it," Adewale roared, unsheathing the royal blade. Outside, the drums of war answered. Spears glittered like teeth. 2 kingdoms trembled on the edge of ruin, all for a kiss that defied the gods. But in the quiet after the chaos, Dara stood before him in the war tent, her wrists still raw from the chains he broke. Her voice was soft, breaking like glass in the wind. "Adewale, this war will burn your people. I cannot let you lose everything for me." He gripped her shoulders, his eyes wild, desperate. "I will lose kingdoms, thrones, my own life, but I will never lose you." Her tears fell like rain. She kissed him, slow and fierce, as if memorizing his soul. And when he closed his eyes to savor her lips, she slipped the dagger from his belt. "Forgive me, my king," she whispered. When he opened his eyes, she was gone, fleeing into the darkness like a shadow, leaving only the echo of her kiss and the dagger slick with her own blood. At dawn, her body was found by the river, her white gown stained red, her face serene like a goddess who chose death over war. And King Adewale. He walked into battle that day wearing no crown, only grief as his armor. The songs say his roar shook the earth, that kingdoms fell, but they never tell of the man who burned for love and lost twice. His throne, and the only woman who ever made him feel alive.